Good morning, Easter people. Well, good midday, Easter people. I hope you're having a wonderful day today. Never mind the circumstances, okay? And yeah, I've got my mask, but I'm home, so I don't think I have to wear it. I wanted, yesterday morning when I was sitting down having coffee with my birds, I remembered. So it kept coming back to me, this image in New York of Hart Island and these mass burials that they're doing. It used to be 25 bodies that they would bury, people who couldn't claim their family. 25 people a week were being buried there. Now it's up to 25 a day because of the CoVid. And that's kind of shocking for a city like New York, huh? So I had that image in my head. And then I was remembering also, it came together in my head, this lovely meme that has been going around for a few days now about returning to normal. And it says, in the rush to return to normal, I wrote it down here, in the rush to return to normal, let us use the time to consider which parts of normal are worth returning to. And that had me thinking for a long time. Hi Amanda, hi Giselle. That had me thinking for a long time. What will normal say about us in 2,000 or 3,000 years from today? Because archaeology is an interest of mine. I've been interested in archaeology since childhood. And one of the things that archaeologists do is look back in the past and try to interpret what lives were like then. So from the archaeologist in me, I projected into the future, what would we be saying about our lives now that archaeologists will be able to pick up 2,000 or 3,000 years from now? More specifically, when they uncover this mass grave, what would they know? Morning, Faith. What would they know about us when they uncover this mass grave? Or in other countries, more mass graves or burial sites. So that was what started me off thinking, and I started jotting down a whole lot of notes. What has disappeared that in the past? What things were normal in the past that nowadays we scratch our heads and try to figure out? What was going on with those people then? What were their lives then? What can we understand? What was important then that's a blank for us now? We had the Mayan civilization. They disappeared suddenly, we are told. They left huge cities and observatory towers, and all of those things now are buried under forests, reclaimed by the forests. We have ancient Egypt, earlier Middle Eastern civilizations, the city of Petra, cut in stone, Stonehenge itself. In Europe, they have all these forts and the ruins of castles and churches. So we have the ancient records that exist in some degree. And I'm looking at what we have today and wondering, what will the future have to say about us? So the Egyptians, things were normal with them like 2,000 or 3,000 years ago. Rome, what was that magnificent empire, was like, they lasted 900 years. The Greeks lasted 1,000 years. The Mayans disappeared, as did the Incas in Peru. Massive civilizations. They covered huge landscapes. They disappeared in the 1500s. And now we hardly know a thing about them, really and truly. Archaeologists interpret in the context of where we live. They interpret those people's lives based on what we know. And that is why, like, we see the Egyptian civilizations, we look at the pyramids at Giza, and for hundreds of years we thought, oh, these guys were just pulling these stones with ropes, and because that was the context that we knew. Now, of course, they're understanding that when the Nile floods its banks, that was when they could put these stones on rafts and sail them for hundreds of miles, really. Some of those stones came from the highlands, the upper reaches of Egypt. And so we're now beginning to understand what the past has held. But when we look at ourselves, really and truly, what are we going to be able to see about ourselves? What is this normal that this meme is saying that we want to rush back to? To dwell a little bit still on the past, we had the seven wonders of the ancient world. One of those seven exists today. That's the Great Pyramids the Great Pyramid at Giza. So we have lost the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, the statue of Zeus at Olympia that was 40 feet high, the Temple of Artemis at Ephesus, the Mausoleum at Halicarnassus that was 135 feet high, the Colossus of Rhodes, which was a bronze statue about 100 feet high, the lighthouse at Alexandria 400 feet high. All of those man-made things, with the exception of the pyramids, all of them have disappeared. Our legacy seems to me to be cities and buildings. So the seven wonders of the modern world are deemed to be the Great Wall of China, which really is awesome. The Taj Mahal, it was built in 1600s. The city of Petra, carved out of rock in the year 200, started around the year 200. The Colosseum of Rome in about 70 AD. Christ the Redeemer in Rio, 1900s. Chichen Itza in Mexico, 500 AD. And Machu Picchu, 1400 AD. And some people want to add the eighth wonder of the world is the Aswan High Dam. So all of these are man-made constructs. And when you look at the most ancient things, they're all made of stone, a durable material. What are we building? What are we using now for our buildings? We're using glass, which is durable, but will shatter. So those glass buildings won't be there. Their frames are in steel. So that's a metal, but I don't know the durability of that metal. So when the archaeologists in 2,000 years' time find the overgrown landscape that was New York City, for instance, because it will happen. I mean, we like to think that all that is normal now will forever be, but of course that's not the way the world goes. So we have the physical, we leave physical evidence. Stone and metal tend to be durable. We have written records. In the past, they've left written records. Languages have disappeared. So that the hieroglyphs in Egypt were only interpreted by coincidence when the Rosetta Stone with multiple languages describing the same event were found, and that allowed the interpretation and deciphering of the ancient Egyptian texts. But those texts were also written, the Egyptian texts were also carved into the walls, so they were also written in stone. The Greeks and the Romans, and so their texts and the cuneiform of the Abyssinians, those things were all written on durable materials. What are we writing our history on now? What are we recording our presence on now? I'll come back to that. But I know it's material that deteriorates. CDs and paper and so deteriorate. And then, of course, the other thing that we know the past on would be the stories and the legends that are passed on by word of mouth. That has actually got a very, very long history. I know a friend here from Somalia who talks about when you go to a family, when you travel and you go to visit a family, what you do is you recite your family history, your family tree, so that the person you are going to knows who you are and what your family is. So the spoken word, legends, that's a way that many civilizations have been able to allow to be known today, because they are legends. So that's the past. But what is our normal? The buildings, I mentioned the buildings already, glass and steel. Well, we use concrete and we use wood, concrete blocks and wood. So the concrete may stand a chance, as did in ancient times. They used blocks as well, stone blocks. But I'm more concerned with what will remain. The normal for us are these massive cities. New York, in the US, where actually they're quite good at breaking down buildings. Nothing remains forever. There's no permanence when Americans build. There's permanence in Europe when they build. They leave buildings to age and to get a history. Not in the West, because we have tended to fit into the Western model, this whole Western hemisphere that we live in. So that not that those civilizations did it. When the Spanish arrived and they conquered the Aztecs, the Mayans, the Incas, they abandoned all their civilizations were decimated by smallpox, which was a plague of its own, and by the Spanish conquerors. But they left stone structures behind. Today we are building with less durable materials. So I don't know in 2,000 years from now what will be left. Plastic is the big thing. They say plastic won't decompose. But we're not building things with plastic. We're only polluting. We're only contaminating. So what will our record really say of who we are as a people? What was normal for us, this life that we live? What will remain of it? So we have buildings. Our other normal is the economy, our economies. What is our economy really based on? It's based on personal wealth. Really and truly, it's personal wealth. It's not about the country. For instance, the Egyptian kings, the pharaohs, they ruled for the good of all people. So they were the benefactors of the entire population. Nowadays, it's the individual fending for himself. So that, what will they know of our economy? in 2,000 years, if that's what it is, each man for his own. Material possessions, disposable wealth. What will they know of our philosophies? We know about the Greeks and the Romans and ancient philosophers. What will be known about us and our philosophies towards life? I'm okay, Jack, as long as I'm all right. Everything's okay, everything's fine. Or the other thing about get rich or die trying. How will we be seen if that's our philosophy in 2,000 years from now, or 1,000, or even 500, really and truly? And then as far as our written or our stories, our legends go, who will these legends be? Who will the story be told about? Evil and good. Where do we sit today in that whole traditional truth of good over evil? When in the last century we had people like Hitler, in this century we have people like Trump and others. So will our stories be about dictators and evildoers who held sway over the good? Because good existed, definitely. We had beautiful good men like Martin Luther King, like Mandela. Why did I forget Mandela? Like Gandhi. But those are not the civilized. Those are not the dominant people. The dominant people are the Europeans and Eurocentric people, and their philosophies are not about, at least not today, good over evil, including in their religious practice, because religion is another one of the legacies that people leave behind. So I'm wondering, what will history or what will the future say about us if religion is how we are going to be remembered. So where are we in the march of history of time? As I mentioned, religion. For a lot of people, their religion has empowered them to have dominion over all other species. But thinking about COVID, man is not prevailing. Other species are prevailing now that man is in decline. So this question of dominion over all doesn't stand up to scrutiny. Not to me anyway, and I don't pretend to have the answers. And COVID, the coronavirus, that is only the current form of it. This COVID-19 is only the current form of the viruses. We've had man has had deadly deadly episodes. You had yellow fever. I made a note of the 10 deadliest known to man. Yellow fever for about 300 years, caused by mosquitoes. You would be dead in 1.5 weeks. Smallpox lasted 100 years. Virus spread by droplets. 1 million were killed, and there was a 30% mortality rate. The Hong Kong flu, apparently there was a Hong Kong flu, which was the H3N2 pandemic, a mutation. 1 to 4 million people were killed. The Antonine plague that hit the Roman Empire came from the east. 2,000 people per day, it was like smallpox. 2,000 people a day. 7 to 10% of the Roman Empire was killed, and Spain and other civilizations. The third plague, 18 1955 to 1959, the bubonic plague, the bubonic plague hit all continents. 12 million deaths, and that was spread by rats and fleas. We're talking about bats as if COVID and China was something exceptional. No. HIV killed among the most people from 1981 to the present day. Bodily fluids, 37.7 are living with AIDS now, but 25 million were killed. The plague of Justinian in the 2 years between 541 to 542, 25 to 50 million estimated, or 10% of the whole population of the world was killed. Rats and fleas again. The Spanish flu, so-called Spanish flu, although it was only Spanish because all the other countries were under censorship and Spain was not, so they spoke about it in Spain, so it was identified with them. Spanish flu 1918 to 1919 spread through military persons, in the wartime military personnel. That took out 1/3 of the world population, 40 to 50 million. Smallpox that decimated our part of the world when the Spaniards arrived with it. The conquistadors spread that. 56 million Aztec deaths. It seems to be making a global comeback. And then the bubonic plague, the worst of all, the Black Death, so-called Black Death, 1347 to 51, took out 1/3 to 1/2 of Europe, spread by rats and fleas. Took out more than twice as many as the combined deaths of World War I and II. So COVID, even this COVID is only 3 months, 3 months old now, right? So we shouldn't be too complacent that it's only, what? Every day the figure changes. I don't even know what it is now. But what is happening with COVID is that 80% of those, which seems that 80% of those of the population is not being infected, as far as they know. The information is changing all the time. So, of the 20% that's left, 10% recover, 5 to 10% die. That leaves about 80% of the population in limbo. And they are not getting over this COVID thing quickly. And now they're saying that COVID is mutating into other forms. They're already identifying 3 strains of this COVID. For us here in TT, the figures this morning were 1,110 were tested. Tests were done. 113 cases, of which 8 have died, 12 were discharged, so that's 20. That leaves 83 of us in limbo in this country. And that's just here. So, what are we rushing back to, really and truly? What is it that we want to rush back to? Our legacy, what is normal for us in this age, is what we're going to rush back to. We're rushing back to the internet age, which has been positively a great equalizer of knowledge and opportunity, access to knowledge, I should say, swift information spread, and choice. You have choices. You can choose. The internet gives you choice that you would not have had before in another era. But the language of the internet it's in some ways I see it like hieroglyphs. Those emojis are like the drawings on the tombs and the temples in Egypt. So it's not language, it's graphic. But our language, our internet language, is not stored in a permanent way like etchings in stone tombs and tablets. Not only do the language platforms change, they become old, they become unusable, but also the material that the language is in decomposes. So if you look at your CD, you'll see all the edges wearing away. So that the language of the internet age, the record of the internet age is not permanent. Our entertainment, what do we do for, how do we entertain ourselves? Is that going to be known? Because entertainment is big for us now. What will they know of our entertainment 2,000 years from now? We have reality TV. And by the way, reality TV came about when script writers went on strike. They were striking for something, I can't remember, probably better conditions, better salaries. So that before reality TV, you had TV shows that told stories. Some of them continue, like Law and Order, SVU, and stuff like that. But now our entertainment is personality driven. And everybody's a personality. So will reality TV be known 2,000 years from now? I don't see any reason to say. I mean, from day to day, we don't. News, how is our news spread? Because we are very much into knowing and spreading stories. Print media is becoming obsolete. The big newspapers, even books in print are becoming obsolete. So that print, which is a physical thing, is disappearing. Cable is replaced. So you have the cable channels. But their focus is on sensation and excitement. And I don't know how their records are being kept for perpetuity. And a lot of what goes for news on those cable channels are really opinions, as opposed to facts. There's a rush for the scoop and a rush to influence minds. That's what our entertainment and news channels do now. And then you have, of course, the vast world of internet and online entertainment. There's no tool, and with that came, with the equalizing of access to data, came the equalizing of spread of access, a spread of information. And with that, there was fake news. People were inventing stories to fit their narrative, and fake news versus truth or fact, without a tool or without the educational capacity to evaluate or to check on the facts, as opposed to judging. Check on it. I don't know that in 2,000 years' time whether that can be evident, or what will it say about our civilization. So, my last little bit of paper here. Where are we in the march of history? I don't have the answers. I was just asking myself. I don't pretend to know. I'm not pretending to predict. I'm not saying we are. I'm saying, are we in the future going to even be visible in 1,000 years or even 500 years? Because, I mean, think of how COVID has, in the snap, just changed our lives. So, in 1,000 years, let's say, give us the benefit, 2,000 years from now, where will we be in the march of history and the march of time? We are seeing all creatures as subject to our needs. But man is the peril to the universe. We've seen that with the disappearance of man for these couple months, rivers and the air and so are clearing up. So when we talk of rushing back to what was normal, will we be able to rush back to what is normal is what I'm asking myself. Is COVID going to be like business as usual? And by the way, let me close with this point. In every government, in trying to establish how they must deal with COVID, seems to be emphasizing money. Money as the solution. Money is not the cure for COVID. Money is what is the tool for us to go back to life as we know it now. But that's not going to be the cure for COVID. And we will see in the long run whether we are the ones who have domain over COVID, or if COVID is going to be the one to change us and change what is normal from us. Okay, peeps, that's my rant for the day. I just had to get these thoughts off. What will they think when they dig up those mass graves in 2,000 years' time? What will they think? What will they know about us? That's really what I was asking. Okay, this is not not so cheerful for Easter, but all these people who are watching. Okay, thank you, Watson. I didn't know you were watching. Yeah. So anyway, I hope that we come to some sort of sense. But I don't know. I at my age, mind you, I have to say at my age, one of my common beliefs, one of my really strongly held beliefs, is that if you live long enough, you will see everything come to pass, including the impossible, or what we thought would never happen. Who would have thought after Obama that Trump would be there? No. So I will leave you with that one. Okay, peeps. Take care. Bye-bye.